I never thought my life could change in a single moment. I always believed in hard work, in solid plans, in things I could control. But then he walked in, pulling me into a whirlwind I had never experienced before. Even now, long after everything has ended, I still wonder, was there a moment when I could have turned back, avoided the wounds that followed? Or had I always been the prey in a game I never even knew I was playing? My name is Lauren Carter, 29 years old, manager of a small but luxurious boutique hotel in the heart of Charleston, South Carolina. This hotel is my whole life. I don't just work here, I consider it home. After losing my parents in an accident when I was 22, I put aside all other dreams to take care of my only sister, Riley, who was just 15 at the time. I did everything to ensure she had a good life, to make sure no one could take away the opportunities she deserved. Riley works at a small cafe near my hotel. She's always cheerful, energetic, and effortlessly likable. But there are moments, fleeting, when no one else is looking, when I catch something unreadable in her eyes. A hint of envy, a trace of exhaustion, or maybe a sadness I can't quite reach. Still, I remind myself that I am her older sister. My job is to protect her, to give her a better life, not to doubt her. Then Nathan Hale appeared. He walked into my hotel on an October afternoon, the sky outside heavy with storm clouds. Nathan wasn't the kind of man you could overlook. Tall, refined, his expensive suit tailored to perfection. He had the smile of someone who knew exactly what he wanted and how to get it. As he reached the front desk, he pulled out his phone, glanced at something briefly, then looked up at me. "Good evening, I'm Nathan. I have a reservation." His voice was deep, smooth, effortlessly captivating. I checked his booking and handed him the key, maintaining a professional smile. "Welcome to Carter's Inn. Is there anything else I can help you with?" Nathan gave a slight smile, his gaze lingering on me a little longer than necessary. "This place is beautiful. But I'm curious. What's exciting around here?" I don't know why I smiled back. Maybe it was his confidence, or maybe I was simply used to wealthy guests with a habit of polite flirtation. "That depends on what you're looking for," I replied, placing the key in his hand. Nathan chuckled, then leaned in just slightly, his voice lowering as if meant only for me. "I suppose I'll find out soon enough." At that moment, I had no idea this man would change my life forever. I didn't think much about Nathan Hale after our first meeting. He was just one of the hundreds of guests who had passed through my hotel's front desk. Polite, wealthy, charming, and likely someone who knew how to play with words. But then, he showed up again. The next morning, as I was reviewing the reservation log, Nathan came down the stairs. Not in the rushed manner of most businessmen, but leisurely, as if he had nowhere urgent to be. He chose a table in the corner of the hotel cafe, where soft morning light streamed through the windows. I noticed the slight crease in his forehead as he stared at his phone, occasionally sighing as though something was weighing on him. I hadn't planned on approaching him, but as I passed by, Nathan looked up, meeting my gaze. "The coffee here seems better than most places I've been," he said with a smile. The kind of smile that was hard not to return. I nodded slightly. "We try to keep everything at its best." "You're doing a great job, Lauren." Nathan tilted his head slightly, his expression unreadable. "You manage this place?" I took a seat across from him, maybe out of curiosity or maybe because something about him felt different from the other guests. "I don't just manage it, I've spent my whole life making sure it runs." He didn't ask why. He didn't say things like, "That's impressive," or, "You must be a strong woman." He just listened. Something rare, something I wasn't used to from most men. For some reason I started talking more. I told him about my parents, how they had built this hotel from nothing, how an accident took them from me when I was just 22. I told him about Riley, the little sister I loved more than anything, the person I had always put first. Nathan slowly stirred his coffee. "Have you ever thought about doing something else?" I let out a small laugh. "Something else?" Anything that doesn't involve dedicating your entire life to keeping a hotel running? He set the spoon down. I just wonder, do you do this because you love it? Or because you feel like you have to? His question made me pause for a second. I had never truly thought about that before. Maybe a little of both, I admitted. Nathan nodded, saying nothing more, as if he had already found the answer he was looking for. I don't get along with them. His voice was lower now, as if he had closed a door I wasn't allowed to open. We're not. Nathan let out a small smile, but it didn't reach his eyes. They have their expectations. I have my own path. I realized then that for this man, the past was a wall not easily crossed. And that only made me want to know more about him. What I didn't know was that Nathan Hale's secrets would be the beginning of a storm I never saw coming. I couldn't pinpoint exactly when things between Nathan and me became serious. At first it was just casual conversations during his stay at the hotel. Then dinners I couldn't bring myself to turn down. Nathan had a way of making me feel special. He listened to me as if I were the only person in the room, as if every word I said truly mattered. The months that followed passed in a sweet haze of happiness. Nathan had a way of turning ordinary moments into something extraordinary. A dinner by the river, a spontaneous weekend trip to New York, or simply thoughtful messages when I was buried in work. I had never felt so loved and cherished. And then, on a June evening, Nathan proposed. We were in Charleston, on the rooftop of an upscale restaurant overlooking the ocean. The sunset painted the sky in brilliant shades of orange, and the air carried the faint scent of jasmine. I still remember the way my heart pounded when Nathan knelt before me, a small velvet box in his hand. Lauren, you are the strongest, smartest, most incredible woman I've ever met. I can't imagine my life without you. Marry me. Applause erupted around us, laughter and excitement filling the air. I looked into his eyes, steady, unwavering, without a trace of hesitation. I nodded. Yes. The answer slipped from my lips before I could think too much. I loved Nathan. I trusted him. So why would I say no? After news of our engagement spread, we began planning the wedding. Nathan was clear about what he wanted: a lavish ceremony, an event the city would never forget. I want everything to be perfect, Nathan said, pulling me into his arms as we browsed wedding venues. We deserve a truly special day. I agreed, but as we started calculating the costs, I realized something. Nathan expected me to cover most of the wedding expenses. You have savings from the hotel, don't you? He said casually. I think it would be meaningful if we both contributed to our big day. I'll take care of the honeymoon and our future home. I hesitated. That money was what I had saved for years to ensure the hotel would never face financial trouble. But Nathan spoke with such conviction, painting a perfect future, a cozy house by the beach, a life where I wouldn't have to worry about anything anymore. Despite my doubts, I nodded. All right, Nathan, let's have the wedding we've always dreamed of. I didn't know then that it would be the worst decision of my life. I never imagined that planning a wedding could be so exhausting. Between meeting vendors, choosing flowers, finalizing the menu, and managing the hotel, I barely had time to breathe. But one thing I knew for sure. I wanted Riley by my side for these important moments. She was the only family I had left. I wanted Riley to help me pick out my wedding dress, to be the first to see me in white, before the big day. Riley, can you take a day off from the cafe? I want you to come dress shopping with me, I said over the phone, trying to mask the exhaustion in my voice. Of course, Lauren, Riley answered immediately. I'll meet you at the bridal shop. 10 a.m., okay? Bellamore Bridal was breathtaking. Rows of pristine white gowns hung on racks, the warm golden lighting casting a dreamy glow over delicate lace and satin. When I stepped out of the dressing room in the first gown, Riley was already waiting. Her eyes lit up, but then, for a fleeting moment, something else crossed her face. Something unreadable. Sadness? Hesitation? How do I look? I asked, spinning slowly in front of the mirror. Riley swallowed hard before forcing a smile. Perfect, Lauren. It's like this dress was made for you. But her voice lacked the enthusiasm I had expected. I narrowed my eyes at her. Are you sure? You seem off. Riley quickly shook her head. No, it's just. I was thinking about the moment you'll actually walk down the aisle. You're going to be the most beautiful bride. I didn't completely believe Riley's words, but I nodded and continued trying on a few more dresses. Then, something strange happened. I had just changed into the third dress when Riley suddenly stood up and walked toward another gown on the rack. It was stunning. Delicately beaded, with a flowing train that shimmered under the soft lighting. Can I try this one? Riley asked, her voice almost weightless. I was surprised, but quickly nodded. Of course. Why not? Riley stepped into the fitting room, and when she emerged wearing that dress, she looked completely different. Her eyes shone with an emotion I couldn't quite name. There was something in the way she gazed at herself in the mirror. Not just admiration, but a dream long suppressed. Riley, I said, slowly, watching her carefully. Are you sure there's nothing you want to tell me? She smiled, but it wasn't the carefree smile I knew so well. It's nothing, Lauren. It's just. Sometimes I wonder if I'll ever get to wear a dress like this. I fell silent. A strange feeling crept into my chest, but I couldn't grasp what it was. As we left the bridal shop, I felt an invisible distance between us. My instincts told me something was wrong. What I didn't know was that this unease would soon turn into the worst nightmare of my life. I had always believed love could make people blind, but I never thought I would become a victim of it myself. The wedding was just one day away. I was too busy double-checking the guest list, ensuring every detail was perfect, to notice the little things. The warning signs I should have seen long ago. That evening, I stayed at Nathan's apartment to rest after a long day. He had a last-minute meeting and left in a hurry, forgetting his phone on the kitchen counter. At first, I thought nothing of it. I wasn't the kind of person to pry into someone else's personal life. But then his phone lit up. A message from an unsaved number. Tomorrow's the big day. I still can't believe we actually pulled this off. I narrowed my eyes. Who would send a message like that the night before our wedding? Another message popped up. She doesn't suspect anything, does she? Not that it matters. It's too late to turn back now. After tomorrow, everything belongs to us. My throat went dry. My heart pounded so hard I could hear every beat. My hands trembled as I reached for the phone and unlocked it. No password. The messages unfolded like a door opening into the worst nightmare I had ever known. The sender was Riley. I couldn't breathe as I scrolled through the previous messages. Cryptic exchanges, plans so twisted I couldn't believe they had been orchestrated by the two people I loved most. He thinks she's a queen, but she's just a pathetic cash cow. Let her pay for everything. I almost feel sorry for her. Once this is over, we'll start fresh, just you, me, and our baby. My vision blurred. I had to blink several times to make sure I wasn't reading it wrong. Baby? I clenched the phone in my grip, but the words didn't disappear. They remained there, sharp and cruel, as undeniable as the truth I had just uncovered. Riley was pregnant with Nathan's child. Pain erupted in my chest. A crushing weight that felt like someone had reached into my ribcage and twisted my heart until it shattered. They had betrayed me. Not just betrayed me, they had planned to discard me like something worthless, right after they had drained me of everything I was worth. I saw the messages filled with contempt, the words that made it clear I had been nothing more than a fool to them. Riley, the sister I had sacrificed my youth for, had been the one to drive the knife in the deepest. And Nathan, the man I was about to marry. I gripped the phone tighter, forcing myself to steady my breath. I could call them both right now, confront them, scream, destroy everything. But I didn't. I had learned one thing. Traitors never expect their victim to stay silent. If they thought I would be easy to throw away, they had just made the biggest mistake of their lives. I sat there in Nathan's apartment, the phone in my hands, its weight like lead pressing into my palm. The messages still glowed on the screen, but my heart had stopped breaking. Instead, something else rose inside me, cold, sharp, and far more dangerous than pain. I could have screamed. I could have confronted them right then and there, but what would that accomplish? A fake apology? Empty justifications? No, I didn't need that. I needed the truth, and I needed justice. I erased any trace of my presence on Nathan's phone, placing it back exactly where I found it, as if I had never touched it. When he returned from his meeting, I still smiled at him like I was the happiest woman in the world, just days away from walking down the aisle. "You're home late," I said softly, even though my mind was screaming. Nathan walked over and placed a kiss on my forehead. "Just a few important meetings, love. Everything okay?" I smiled, masking my hatred beneath a gentle expression. "Perfect." But the very next morning, I secretly hired a private investigator. I couldn't just rely on text messages to bring everything crashing down. I needed real proof. Something that would destroy them in ways they never saw coming. Within 24 hours I had my first pieces of information, and they were worse than I ever imagined. Nathan Hale was not the man I thought I loved. He was a fraud, a master manipulator. The investigator revealed that he was legally married to a woman named Elizabeth Hale, living in Atlanta. Not only was she his wife, but she was also the mother of his 4-year-old son. A child Nathan had never supported. And that wasn't all. Nathan wasn't the successful businessman he claimed to be. He was drowning in hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt from failed business ventures, desperately searching for a way out. Suddenly, everything made sense. Nathan never loved me. He needed my money. And Riley, my own sister, my own flesh and blood, the person I had sacrificed my entire youth to protect, she had chosen to side with him. I stared at the documents the investigator had sent me, each page, a damning piece of evidence, confirming the sickening betrayal. I could have called off the wedding immediately. I could have confronted Nathan right now and torn apart every illusion he had so carefully spun. But I didn't just want to escape him. I wanted him to suffer. I wanted Riley to understand the true cost of betrayal. So, I would let the wedding happen. I would stand there, smiling at him, at my sister, and wait for the perfect moment. Because when I made my move, they would both fall apart. The morning sunlight streamed through the window, casting a soft glow on the pure white silk of my wedding dress. I stood before the mirror staring at my own reflection. A beautiful, radiant bride. But beneath the surface, a storm was waiting to break free. Everything was ready. I was ready. Nathan thought he was about to have everything. Riley believed she had won. But neither of them knew that today wouldn't be the day they had envisioned. Today would be the day they were destroyed. The wedding was held in a historic church in Charleston, where crystal chandeliers sparkled under the afternoon sun. The guests had all arrived, their faces filled with excitement, waiting to witness the kind of grand wedding they had only seen in fairy tales. Nathan stood at the end of the aisle, dressed in a perfectly tailored tuxedo, his expression filled with arrogant confidence. He looked at me with a sense of pride, as if he were a man on the verge of stepping into the perfect life. I walked down the aisle, step by slow, deliberate step. There was no nervous excitement, no fluttering anticipation like other brides might feel. There was only an eerie sense of calm, the quiet before the storm I was about to unleash. As the priest began the ceremony, my gaze shifted to Riley sitting in the front row, her eyes avoiding mine. She knew she shouldn't be here. And yet, she couldn't bring herself to miss this moment. The moment she thought she would watch me fall. The priest had just asked the familiar question. "Does anyone object to this marriage?" The sharp sound of high heels echoed through the church. I turned my head. Riley was walking in. Not just walking in, she was wearing a wedding dress. A pure white gown, nearly identical to mine. A wave of murmurs rippled through the guests. A few people even gasped aloud. Riley stopped in the middle of the aisle, her gaze no longer filled with hesitation like the day before. Instead, it was bold. Defiant. "Lauren, you should step aside," she said, her voice calm but laced with challenge. "The person who belongs next to Nathan today is me." The entire church fell into stunned silence. Nathan didn't look shocked, he didn't look confused. Instead, he smiled. Smiled as if this was the most natural thing in the world. He took Riley's hand, pulling her close in front of me, then turned to address the crowd. "Lauren, did you really think we were going to get married?" Nathan shook his head, laughing in mockery. "You were nothing more than a means to an end, a bank account to fund everything. But Riley, she's the one I love. She's the mother of my child." The silence in the church was heavier than any laughter could have been. No one could believe what they had just heard. Some guests covered their mouths in shock, while others whispered furiously among themselves. They were expecting me to cry, to collapse, to run out in humiliation. But I didn't. I simply stood there, watching them for a long moment. Then, very slowly, I smiled. With quiet, deliberate steps, I moved away from my position as the bride and walked toward the front rows of guests. I didn't look angry. I didn't look heartbroken. I looked completely at peace. Then, I took a seat, crossed my legs, and let my gaze drift lazily over Nathan and Riley. "Well," I said, my voice echoing through the church. "This is interesting." I leaned back in my seat, casually gazing up at the altar, then shrugged. "I paid for everything here, so why would I leave when the show is just getting started?" The murmurs erupted louder than ever. Nathan and Riley looked unsettled. They hadn't expected this reaction from me. They had no idea the real performance was far from over. I remained seated, calm and collected among the guests, watching as Nathan and Riley stood at the altar, visibly shaken by my unexpected response. Did they expect an outburst, a dramatic meltdown? They didn't realize they were the ones about to crumble. Nathan cleared his throat, trying to regain control. "Lauren, do you really want to just sit there and watch?" he scoffed. "Aren't you embarrassed?" I smirked and slowly shook my head. "Oh no, Nathan, the game isn't over yet." The church doors suddenly swung open. Elizabeth Hale walked in. She wasn't rushing, she wasn't furious, she was poised, exuding quiet authority. A woman in her 30s with an elegant frame. But her eyes burned with restrained fury. Nathan went pale instantly. "Elizabeth, Don't Elizabeth me," she cut him off, her voice sharp as a blade. She stepped forward, positioning herself directly in front of Nathan before turning to face the entire congregation. "Good afternoon, everyone," she announced, her voice ringing through the church. "I am Nathan Hale's legal wife." The entire church fell into stunned silence. Riley's eyes widened, her lips parted, but no words came out. The guests erupted into whispers, some even covering their mouths in shock. Elizabeth continued. "Nathan didn't just betray Lauren, he betrayed me too. I've been his legal wife for the past 7 years. We have a 4-year-old son, and Nathan has never given a single dime to support him." Nathan tugged at his collar, sweat beginning to bead on his forehead. "Elizabeth, just listen to me." She slapped him. The entire crowd gasped. "You've lied enough," Elizabeth said, her voice ice cold. "And now the whole world will know exactly who you are." I slowly rose to my feet, my gaze shifting to Riley. She looked like she was about to collapse. "But wait," I said, smiling as I took my time. "The story isn't over yet." I pulled out a thick file, the documents gathered by my private investigator, and held them up for all to see. "Let me introduce you all to today's honorable groom," I said, my voice dripping with sarcasm. "Nathan isn't just a cheater, he's a con artist." I tossed the file onto the nearest table. A few guests picked up the papers, their eyes widening as they read, the sound of horrified murmurs spreading like wildfire through the church. "He's in debt, over $300,000. After a series of failed investments. And guess what? His grand plan was to use me to pay it all off. Nathan stood frozen, completely pale. Yeah, Lauren, that's not. I didn't give him a chance to lie his way out. Instead, I turned to his parents, who had been sitting in stunned silence the entire ceremony. Their expressions had darkened with every revelation. "Mr. and Mrs. Hale," I said, my voice steady. "You always believed your son was successful, didn't you? But the truth is, he's nothing more than a leech, a professional liar." Nathan's father, a powerful man with a stern face, shot up from his seat. "And that's enough, Nathan," he growled. "I can't believe you've disgraced this family like this." His mother wept silently, covering her mouth as all eyes in the church turned to Nathan and Riley. Two people who had once been so smug, now standing at the center of their own humiliation. His father's glare hardened as he delivered the final blow. "You are no son of mine." Nathan flinched as if he had been struck. He was utterly ruined. I turned my attention to the person who had once meant the world to me. My sister. Riley's face was ghostly pale, her lips trembling. She tried to speak, but nothing came out. "Lauren," she stammered. I simply stared at her, silent. Then, without another word, I turned and walked away. They had destroyed me. But today, I destroyed them. After that disastrous wedding, Nathan and Riley lost control of everything. But for me, the game had only just begun. I wasn't going to let this story end with their public humiliation. Nathan had to pay. A few days later, I filed a lawsuit against Nathan Hale for fraud and financial exploitation. With the overwhelming evidence gathered by my private investigator, my lawyer built an airtight case. The court ruled in my favor. Nathan was ordered to pay me $75,000. Every penny I had spent on the wedding, plus damages for the emotional distress he had caused. He had no way to fight it. He had lost everything. And that wasn't all. Elizabeth, his actual wife, also filed a lawsuit against him, demanding child support for their son. Drowning in debt, abandoned by his family, and with no financial lifeline left, Nathan was forced into complete bankruptcy. He tried to contact me, begging me to drop the lawsuit. But my answer was simple. "You once called me a cash cow, didn't you? So tell me now, Nathan. Who's the pathetic one in this game?" He never reached out again. After Nathan lost everything, he disappeared. He abandoned Riley. Pregnant, broke, and alone. Without a single dollar, without even a goodbye. One day she came looking for me. For the first time since the wedding. She stood at the front door of my hotel, tears streaming down her face. Her baby bump now unmistakable. "Lauren." Her voice cracked. "Can you help me?" I looked at her. The sister who had once meant everything to me, but who had also betrayed me in the cruelest way possible. I remembered the messages she had sent Nathan, the way she had mocked me, the way she had plotted to erase me from their lives. I had nothing left to give her. I took a deep breath, keeping my voice steady. Riley froze. You can't just leave me like this. I'm your sister." I shook my head. "You were my sister." And then I closed the door, leaving Riley standing there, alone, among the ruins of the life she had chosen. I didn't feel hatred anymore. Just emptiness. A few months later, I sold the hotel. I realized I had spent my entire life protecting what my parents left behind. But I had forgotten that I had a life of my own to live. I left Charleston, carrying with me the lessons life had carved into my soul. Never love someone more than you love yourself. Never let trust turn you into someone else's puppet. And if someone betrays you, make sure they pay for it. I was no longer the naive Lauren Carter. I was Lauren Carter, the woman who burned down her past to build a stronger future. And I never looked back. Lauren Carter's story is more than just a personal tragedy. It's a powerful lesson on trust, love, and betrayal. It reminds us that sometimes, the people we trust the most are the ones who can destroy us the worst. Love should never be blind, and kindness should never be a free pass for others to take advantage of us. Strength isn't about never getting hurt. It's about rising after the pain. So in life, cherish yourself first, and if someone betrays you, let them learn what it means to pay the price. What do you think about Lauren Carter's story? If you were in her situation, what would you have done? Share your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to follow the channel for more powerful stories about family, love, and life's most valuable lessons.